So many gamers have looked away from AAA studios in the West to alternatives in South Korea, China, and even Japan. And while those companies have typically done pretty well, some of them have fallen into following the PC trends, like Square Enix, for example. They have internal ethics departments that tell developers what they can and can't put in their games and who they might offend by adding certain pieces of content like low cut tops on women. And now we, of course, have the director of Final Fantasy Rebirth speaking out just a few days ago, admitting that they are guided by ethical reviews instead of prioritizing Japan and creative freedom. But before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, it's no shocker to hear that Square Enix has had so many problems over the past couple of years because while, yes, they have had a lot of success still, and they have sold a lot of copies of games, and they are still big, they've faced more backlash than ever. And unfortunately, they are just one of the companies that are following politically correct trends, right? They don't want to offend certain groups of people, and they want to make games for a global audience. They want to try to reach as many people as possible, which I understand to a certain extent because they're a company that needs to make money, but they are approaching that in such a wrong way. They are too focused on PC-ness first instead of creative freedom, which is actually what makes games sell. And now we have the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth director talking about modern game development and how, quote, we now create with a global audience in mind, which is heartbreaking because developers should be creating what they feel passionate about. Developers should be creating what they want to create. Square Enix hired these people, you would think, because these people are the best at their job, because they are talented and they are passionate and they are amazing. So you would think that a company would want them to just continue doing what made them become noticed in the first place, but that's not the case. These individuals at Square Enix want to control their developers and what they're actually creating, and that's why they have things like internal ethics departments, which we'll get into in a minute. But it says the industry has come a long way since the first Final Fantasy VII released in 1997. At the PlayStation Partner Awards 24 Japan Asia, the director of the Grand Award-winning title, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, noted that there is a change of essence in Square Enix's approach to game development in terms of prioritizing the global audience right from the beginning. I say this all the time. When you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody. You end up watering down content for regions like China or Australia, and then people in the Western world don't want to support you anymore. When the original Final Fantasy VII came out, we were first making it for the Japanese market, and it grew internationally as it became known. So if you see something has done well, and even though it was originally marketed primarily for the Japanese audience, but then it grew internationally, why would you want to change that formula? You shouldn't want to. But now, instead of initially focusing first on the Japanese market and allowing the game's audience to grow naturally, we want to make for the whole world first. In that respect, we are in a totally different time period. Oh yes, we don't want the game's audience to grow naturally the way that it did the first time, and that's why our game became massive. That's why it became critically acclaimed. We want to actually sit here and force certain content on everybody. And we think, oh, if we remove certain pieces of content, like maybe cross-dressing bits, maybe some more people will purchase this game. What they don't realize is all they're really doing is forcing certain customers away from their company. It says this is a dramatic change from previous industry tradition whereby Japanese developers tended to prioritize their home market first before undertaking international localization. This is the way that it has been and the way that it should continue to be. There is a reason why so many gamers have looked away from the Obsidians and the BioWares and the AAA Western gaming development industry, and we've looked to South Korean developers, Chinese developers, Japanese developers, because they are creating pieces of content that feel completely different. But all you are doing is making it so you are just like the AAA Western studios that we are now boycotting or researching or actively ignoring. Now, Square Enix had fallen many, many years ago. I've talked about them so much on the channel, but here's just one example of the many. A Square Enix job listing provides details on ethics department, confirms focus on, quote, discriminatory or offensive content, which is absurd. There's basically a team of people that look at what the developers are creating and say, oh no, you have to remove this piece of content, or you need to remove this joke, or you need to add a dialogue line about pronouns or this character's sexuality. They are the ones who are looking over the dev's shoulder instead of allowing them to just be creative and telling them what they should or should not put into their game. They're basically a built-in SBI. These details were recently brought to the public's eye courtesy of a Twitter user who on March 26th, 2022, highlighted a staff interview. They were talking about how, quote, the result of my work is that users can play to end without any discomfort, and she works in the company's quality control department. Now, I totally understand there are going to be some of you who say, I really want to give them the benefit of the doubt because they've created so many amazing games in the past, and I have a lot of love and nostalgia for them, which I totally understand. They have created some really great games, but you also need to recognize that they've been a bad company for a very long time. I've talked about them dozens of times on this channel. Square Enix will ban gamers who criticize them or partners like Sweet Baby Inc. and Black Girl Gamers. This was only from a month ago. Square Enix virtue signals for Pride October stream, and Little Goody Two Shoes devs call gamers bigots. Wow, one of Square Enix's partners. They were, of course, questioned by shareholders amidst SBI boycotts. Triangle Strategies' English translation was completely butchered. Square Enix had said the term woman was offensive. As a woman myself, I'm offended by that. Final Fantasy Rebirth itself was sanitized by Square Enix. Things like cigarettes were removed from the game. The Chrono Cross remaster censored dialogue, outfits, and performance was total trash. Forspoken's $100 million budget ended up falling through. That was a game they really expected to go somewhere, and it didn't. We know that they had censored female characters in the Dragon Quest mobile game. The Square Enix president had said 2 years ago, devs need to have creative freedom, yet the company at the same time censors games for the West. So they're filled with hypocrites. They do not care about creative freedom. They don't care about just creating really high quality pieces of content. They're worried about pandering, which is so sad to see. And of course, Learning the Law had actually posted this over on X, and his audience is rightfully so absolutely wrecking Squeenix right now. It's fine, Korea and China are picking up the slack. If this is the path Japan wants to go down, they can go bankrupt within the West. It's so over. Japanese games are done. So garbage, but it's sad to see. Left's idea of tolerance is to dismantle any culture that doesn't fully conform to their beliefs. 100% true. Square continuing this path will end up with plenty of layoffs. They need to gut the DEI out of their business. They should stick with the OG. That's what makes Final Fantasy so special. Insanity that it's spread even to Square. So I will be keeping my eye on this situation, but this is not some new sentiment that they're sharing. This has been the mentality at this company for years at this point. We've never heard a lot of creatives specifically come out and admit this. Usually it's the president, usually it's news about an ethics department, or we just straight up see products being toned down and censored. But it seems that they're pushing it even further, going into interviews, talking about how they are actively abandoning Japan. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.